My distinct honor and privilege and pleasure to now introduce you to Dr. Kozhi Sidney Makai. Let's welcome him. Hello.
Thank you. None of that was true, by the way. It just sounds good. Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate your energy. I'm a mover, and so hopefully you're going to stay with me and you guys are going to engage as much as possible. How much time do I have, Christina? How much time do I have?
Until 3 o'clock, sir.
Oh, fantastic. We have like until 6. It's perfect. So, my background and my story is probably similar to yours, and you're going to see connections to that story, because even though we come from different parts of the world, there are things that connect us. And that's some of the things that I want us to talk about today, is how do we make those connections and find ways to thrive in the middle of those different connections that we each have. And so I am fortunate to come from a pretty large family. I'm the last of 9. I have 2 amazing sisters, and my parents tried 7 times to get a perfect son. My wife is sitting in the front row over here. Wave at everyone, honey. And I keep telling her that she's lucky she got the best Makai. Which is why I brought her today, just to prove to her that I actually am the best Makai. But what I really want us to talk about today, and if you look at that title, if it's still up there, Streaming to Success, most of us, when we think of the word streaming, we're probably thinking about video streaming, but I'm actually using the word in a slightly different perspective. And I want us to talk about water. I know, you guys showed up here to talk about water, but I want you to think about the power that water has. My favorite H. Jackson Brown quote goes like this: "In the confrontation between the rock and the stream always wins, not by strength, but by perseverance." How many of you have gone to the Grand Canyon? Anybody think it was amazing? That's the power of water. That's what water can do, right? It can cut through rock, but it won't necessarily cut through rock in one moment. It does it over days, over years, over centuries. And that's the same way we become successful. Most people assume that success happens overnight. That the things that we want in life, the great things that we want in life, the things that really make us happy, the things that make us feel as if we're accomplished, that they happen overnight, but they do not. Those are things that we have to work on over and over and over and over. And so my goal today is to have this about as much interaction as we can get, right, from an audience in a setting such as this one, but also for me to share some of the things I've discovered in my journey. About 23 years ago, I was sitting in a seat just like you. I was a student at Lone Star, trying to find my way. What did I want to do? What did I want to study? What were the things that I could learn? And what were the places where I could grow in order for me to get to the places that I wanted to achieve? And so in many ways I can relate to you, but there's so many other ways that I can't relate to you. Because 23 years ago, we had a thing called dial-up. Does anybody even know what dial-up is? Does anybody know the sound that dial-up made? Exactly. That's what it was. And today, we have faster connections on our phones than we had on dial-up. Most of us checked our email and did everything related to the internet on college campuses, not at home, because it was way too expensive to do. 23 years ago, we had flip phones. Anybody have a flip phone? Did anybody know how to do the whole texting using T9? You guys were too cool for me, because I never got into it. I did not get into texting until you actually had a QWERTY keyboard. But things change over 23 years. Does that mean that we cannot grow and we cannot improve? That's not necessarily true. It's really about sticking to it, right? There's a new word that's going out there, especially in the sports world, right? Stick-to-itiveness. All of us have to develop a sense of stick-to-itiveness. Because most of us, when the going gets tough, we don't exactly get tougher, we step back. Because we feel as if this is just a wall we cannot surmount. I know what it feels like to have walls that you feel like you can't surmount. And hopefully the tips and tricks I'll share with you are going to be valuable enough for you, and on your hardest days, because you will have many of them. How many of you have had a hard day in the last 7 days? Fantastic, look at this, we've got an amazing club. And yet you're here. and yet you're smiling, and yet you're pushing on. That's what perseverance does. And so I want you to think from the perspective of what type of Grand Canyon do I want to create in my own life? Because those are the stories that matter. So one of my areas that I really enjoy studying is really understanding people's stories. So people ask me all the time, what is it that you do for a living? P.S. My wife does not know what I do for a living. Right? We've been together 10 years and she has no idea what I do. I keep telling her I'm a blood diamond dealer. A drug dealer was already taken, so I was like, I'm from Zambia, I'm from Africa, diamonds, blood diamonds, it's pretty awesome. So most of the days when I'm working from home, I walk around the neighborhood and I'm on phone calls with clients. And so my ex-neighbor was a police officer, so I told him, I was like, yeah, I'm just doing my usual stuff, just dealing drugs. He's like, no, you're from Zambia. It's blood diamonds for you. So I'm getting a business card made, Kozhi Makai, blood diamond dealer. All of us have to figure out exactly what it is that we want. That's the number one step. What is it that you want? But more than that, what are you willing to give up for it? That's the hardest part. What are you willing to give up for it? I'll give you an example. I know all of you are willing to give something up because it's Saturday and you're here. Not that it's a bad thing, by the way. I just mean you were here. You could be somewhere else, but you were here. And that's what it takes to be successful. However you define success, by the way. So most people assume that there's one definition for success. I disagree. I think there are multiple definitions of success, and each and every one of us has to figure out which definition works best for us. And then what we're willing to give up for whatever that success is going to look like. Right? Christina kind of mentioned that I just got back from Officer Development School. It was interesting. How about that? That's the word I'm going to use. Got yelled at a lot. Fortunately, it wasn't personally to me. At least I think it wasn't to me, because it just, we have RDCs, and these are the people who essentially train us for a couple of weeks, but all they did was yell. How many of you have eaten like breakfast or lunch in 15 minutes? Oh, you guys would all fit in then. Can you imagine going to a restaurant and then someone slams on the table and says, this is your 1 5-minute warning? Oh, exactly, right? Or you slam on the table and say, this is your immediate warning. I don't care whether you're still eating, you have to get up and leave now. But here's what's interesting. The people that I was with, was about 129 of us in this particular class. All of us had to figure out why we were there. Now, I'm a reservist. Several of my classmates were active. They were going straight from there to their active duty stations. They each had to discover what it is that they wanted on the hardest days, because we had a few of those, where there was no clear instruction, we didn't know what we were supposed to do, but they said, go figure this one thing out, and then one person doesn't get it right, and then you all get punished for it. Yay. And you do your best not to kill that person. I mean, harm that person, or look at them sideways, right? Those were the hard days. All of us are going to have those hard days, but the one thing that anchors us is our why. All of us in this room have to figure out what our why is. P.S. You don't figure out your why once and you're done. You have to constantly go back to your why, because that why will make all the difference. So this is what we're going to do. We're going to do something absolutely different than normal in a setting like this one where somebody's speaking to you. I need you to speak to me as well. You're already doing a great job, by the way, which is so weird because you've got a psychologist in front of you who's reading every single one of you, and now some of you are looking down and wondering, well, is it really looking at me and talking to me? Yes, I am talking to you. We're all reading each other in the room. So what questions that just pop off your mind do you have about what success looks like and what it means? Do you have any questions at this point before I go into any additional content? Because if you don't ask me a question, I will ask you a question. No pressure. Yes, sir, please.
Because some of us are freshmen and just starting out, and we usually get asked what's our major or what are our plans after college. And even before, we were told what do you want to be when you grow up, but we can't possibly know what we want to be, right? So I want to ask, is success knowing what you're going to be when you make it, or is it figuring it out as you go?
Excellent. Does everybody understand that question? right? What does success look like, and do you have to know every single point in your direction before you get there? I will start with the first part when it comes to your major. Anybody want to take a guess how many times I changed my major?
7.
That was awesome. You sure you guys are not psychologists? Yeah, I changed my major a lot because I got into things and figured out, oh, this would be so cool to do. And I'm like, oh my gosh, this would be so cool to do. Oh wait, I really enjoy doing this. I have no problem with you changing your major or as you try to figure things out. My only hope is that you get that figured out before you spend too many credits that won't lead to a degree. You know what I'm talking about, right? Yeah, you got 60-something credits and you're like, this doesn't add up to anything. I have a lot of electives, but I don't know what to do with this. You don't want to get there. So that's step number one, right? You're going to have a lot of changes, but at some point you have to make a decision. So let me give you a quick example. If somebody in this room wanted to go to law school, for the most part, it doesn't matter what your bachelor's degree is. For the most part. So get your bachelor's degree in basket weaving and then go to law school. I mean, most attorneys, that's what they do. They kind of weave things around and you get the point, right? See, somebody get up that one. In terms of figuring out the whole direction, I don't think any human being can do that because none of us actually has the ability to know what's going to happen. Most of us are weathermen and weatherwomen. That's what we do. We speculate about what the future might look like and where we might be and how good things might be or how bad things might be. So what you do is that you have to have some sense of flexibility. And if you were to look at the Grand Canyon from an aerial view, it's not a straight line, is it? Right? It winds a lot. If you look at rivers, so where I grew up in Zambia, Zambia is slightly larger than Texas, 64 different languages and tribes. I think there's 18 million people there. So can you imagine Texas with 18 million people? It would be nice, traffic would be better. But I digress. All the rivers in Zambia do not go straight. In fact, if you look at any river anywhere, it never travels from point A to point B in a straight line. Right? It's going to meander a lot. And that's a good thing. I think that's a good thing because you need that meandering, right to left, but you also need those drops because those drops are the things that allow rapids to happen, right? Obviously speed of water, but also everything dropping. And I know I'm showing my nerdiness, don't judge me. So when that happens, people get to enjoy those rapids because they go out there and do whitewater rafting. And most of those people are tourists because last I checked, I didn't see any Zambians going on the river and saying, hey, this is going to be really fun. No, we have people traveling 10,000 miles to try and die on the Zambezi River. I'm not that guy. It's like people showing up to bungee jump. Like, why would you leave America to come to Zambia to bungee jump and potentially die? Like, do you guys not have bridges to jump off? Well, that totally came out wrong, but you know what I mean. You're tethered. I'm gonna leave that one alone. Anyway, did that answer your question? It's okay for you to not know exactly where you're going to end. But you need to have some idea of what you are looking for. And there's nothing wrong with that shifting and changing and progressively moving forward. Absolutely nothing wrong with that. That's a healthy thing. So please don't feel as if you have to be constrained in your growth process because most of us assume these are the 7 things I need to do and that'll help me grow. Life doesn't work that neatly, unfortunately. You've got a perfect plan in your mind, and then things change. I think it was Mike Tyson that said, everybody has a plan until they, what? Get punched in the mouth. And sometimes life does that a lot to us. We've got this one version, and then we get punched in the mouth. I'll give you one example of that for myself. So I played basketball in Zambia professionally for 5 years, in Zambia and in South Africa. And my goal was to come here and get an education. In fact, just kind of down the street is where I was going to play. I was going to play at U of H. And then life happened. And I got my punch in the mouth. But that punch in the mouth wasn't so bad because instead of an athletic scholarship, I got an academic scholarship. And the rest, as they say, is history. So sometimes you have to give up one thing to get another, and change is going to be the norm. All of us in this room need to embrace change. We have to, because the speed of change is just making things harder for people that want things to always be the same. and it just doesn't work as neatly. So thank you for it. Excellent question, sir. How about a couple more? Yes, please give him a hand. So, before I get the other question in, how about you guys do your Gator again? Because I didn't hear it the first time. Yeah. I want to learn it. I might even dance to it. I didn't say I would, I said I might. Be dancing to it inside. Come on, let's do it together. You want to lead it?
I'll lead it. Here we go. We'll just do the main portion, which is we are Gators. Gators. We are Gators. Gators. Fighting red, fighting blue, fighting white, fight.
Awesome. I just got back from a place where we marched everywhere we went. So this is a welcome change. Trust me. When you hear, if I have to hear the words left, right again, I'm running into a wall. Just letting you know. This, don't you do it. Don't you do it. I'm watching you. Next question. Come on. I know you've got a question or a thought that you want to share. Please share it. No pressure. Oh, and I can stare and be awkward more than anybody else in this room. Right, honey? She knows. Yes, ma'am.
So would you say you're done, or are you going to continue to try and find other endeavors to be successful?
Oh, that was a good question. She asked, would I say that I am done, or I'm going to find other endeavors to get into? I'm going to let one person answer that question. Honey, what do you think?
Oh, there's no chance he's stopping.
So, thank you. Check's in the mail. So, I feel as if there's a certain amount of things that every single human being has been put on earth to do. Not just for themselves, but for others. I'm in the field where I feel as if I want to be useful to others. That's always been my biggest desire. How can I be useful to other people? And so for me, any opportunity that gives me a chance to be useful to others, I will take it. I'm going to give you a caveat. I want you all, as much as possible, to be as useful to as many people as you can. Just remember, you can't be useful to everyone all the time. And it's hard figuring out what that balance looks like. And so here's the challenge, right? In my world, so I've been speaking. I've been a speaker for 23 years. I've been a coach probably for 20 years. And sometimes we feel as if we have to take care of everyone at the same time. But that's just not true. And it's such a high pressure world today, right? 23 years ago, we didn't have the drama of social media. Now, I say the drama of social media because social media itself is not the problem. It's the users that are the problem. Now, we can say, well, social media is the one that created that. That's not true. Anytime you have human beings and you put them together in a setting, you're going to get some things that won't work as neatly as you would like them to. But we cannot blame the setting necessarily for all those issues. All of us have to take accountability for our own choices and our own behaviors. In my family, we are very, very big, extremely big on consequences. And in our house, consequences are neutral. Because people hear the word consequences. Like when I said the word consequence, did you think it was positive or negative? Be honest. Negative. Most of us think it's negative, right? But here's what's crazy. When you look in the dictionary and you really look at the origin of the word consequence, yes, I'm a nerd. It's really neutral. Honestly, it's absolutely neutral because there are consequences to studying. And those happen to be positive. There are consequences to not studying. And for most people, those tend to be negative. So consequences themselves in general are neutral. You and I, what we do on this side of the equation makes all the difference. There's a lot that you and I can't control. So in my mind, I have a very simple rule. I don't worry about anything I can't control. And then if I can control it, then there's nothing for me to worry about. So in general, I try just not to worry about anything. Now, does that mean I don't get concerned? Does that mean that I don't think through things? No. It just means I try as much as I can not to waste energy. And so in your process, in my process of trying to achieve, right, to do the very best with everything God has given me, there's only one way for that to happen, is to have a little bit of a mentality that says there are certain people that I need to reach. And I need to do my darndest every day to find those people and reach out to them. Because everyone else, it doesn't matter. Let me tell you another story that has nothing to do with what we're talking about, but it'll connect somehow. I hate grass. What? I hate grass, like for lawns. Stay with me, right? We don't have any grass in our backyard. It's awesome. Because here's the problem with grass. What do you have to do with it? Somebody has to cut it. Somebody has to mow it. Guess what I did in college? Oh, yeah, no. It's like painting. I painted in college. Guess what I don't do now? I don't paint. What? No. No, I'm good. I remember a time when I painted so much, and we did commercial painting. So the discount tire stores that you see if you go down to Galveston and anything around the bay, yeah, I painted some of those. And so one day you show up and you paint white, right? And then you're not rolling everything. I mean, you were spray painting. I had paint on me, I'm just going to say it that way. I had paint on me for weeks. You show up to class and it's like, you're looking almost like a zebra, but weird. It's like a zebra went from stripes to spots. It was just weird. The next week you show up and you paint red. There's just certain things I don't do anymore. I don't like grass. But if I did have a wonderful lawn, you know what I would want to do to it? I would want to fertilize that grass. I would want to water that grass. But here's the trick. You have to make sure that the water is only going where? On the grass. And how many of you have seen sprinkler systems that are doing a fantastic job just watering the road? All day. And I'm like, they're wasting water. Their bill is going to be really high. I've had to knock on people's houses. I'm not being creepy. I was being nice. I knocked on the door and I said, you're watering the road. Were you planning on doing that? If you were, have a nice day. If not, you may want to change a few things. All of us have to have boundaries. Boy, I could talk about boundaries all day. Because let's cross over to the relational side, where people don't have effective boundaries, right? If we don't have effective boundaries, then anyone and everyone gets to be involved in our lives, and it's not always positive. And most people mean well, genuinely, they mean well. They want to look out for us, but you can't have too many voices in your ear all the time. Because you're bound to get so much contradictory information, your brain doesn't process information well like that. And you're just going to pick a track that may not even get you where you want to be. So in your process of achievement, as you're trying to achieve, always do your best to see if those things align with one thing and one thing only. It starts with V, that word starts with V and ends with S. And you can buy some vowels. Any guesses? Values. Yes, you can clap. Excellent. So here's the thing. All of us have three things. We have attitudes, beliefs, and values. Which one do you think is most enduring? Which one lasts long? Our values. You know why? Because it takes a long time to get those values. My late father used to say all the time, education is important. Education is important. Education is important. And then he'll turn around the next day and say, get as much education as you can. Get as much education as you can. And guess what he would do the next day? Education is important. Education is important. It became such a central part of my value system. Now, does it have to be only formal education like this? No. We have to learn as much as we can. Most people assume that the best learning you're going to do is always the positive things. I have learned from the worst leaders. How many of you have had that experience? You've had a bunch of people and you're like, I'm never being that. That's never going to happen. Right? Sometimes you need those lessons, and that's the heart that you're creating, a heart that says, I am going to be open to learning. But that's the key. The only way you learn is to have humility, because if you're choosing to learn, it means you don't know everything. And you and I have met those people that know everything, haven't you? Hopefully they're not sitting next to you. Because then it'll be awkward. For them, not for you. Right? So, keep that in mind. All right, one more question. Yes, sir?
What are some of the practical habits that you have found have been most useful in your journey to be successful?
Ooh, practical. Thank you, that's a good cue right there. Practical lessons. How about I give you some of those practical lessons? Number one, self-awareness. So if you're writing, write this one down. The worst type of leader is one who is not self-aware. It's a bad day when you're an idiot and you don't know it.
Amen.
I'm just saying, on my idiot days, at least I know it. Right? Self-awareness is so important because it lets me know what my limitations are. Right? I want to know what the ceiling is. Everyone wants to break the ceiling, but if you can't even get close to it, you're worrying about the wrong thing. I want to know what the upper limits are, what the lower limits are, and then if we're going to go Old Navy on you, I want to know what the aft and the forward limits are. So it's weird we use the words forward and aft. Aft is behind you. It's so weird. Right? I want to know what the port limits are, left. I want to know what the starboard limits are, right. I want to know what cube or what box that I'm in. That way I know exactly what I need to do. Now, all of us have those limitations when it comes to our strengths, when it comes to our communication, when it comes to our relations. We have all those limits available to us. We need to know what they are. That's one side. But we also need to know what our strengths are. So if there was any advice that I would have you remember for this entire time that we're together, know your strengths. That's part one. Part two, leverage your strengths. How many of you, be honest, have been in a situation where you felt like you needed to hold back a little bit because you didn't want your strengths to outshine somebody else? Don't do it again. I'm sorry? Yes. Don't do it again. This is the worst thing you can ever do. How would you feel if the pilot of your plane was like, you know what? I know I'm really good at this flying thing, but maybe I just shouldn't put my all into it because I don't want somebody in the back feeling as if, you see where I'm going with it? Yeah, don't do that. You're not doing anyone any favors. And here's what's worse. Ultimately, that's going to be false humility. Now, am I talking about you bragging and being that guy or that girl? I'm not talking about that version. I am saying you should make sure that your strengths are on full display every day, because you don't know who needs your full strengths that day, that moment. Your strength or your superpower, depending on how you look at it, could be listening. And if you don't bring it that day, you don't know who actually needs you to listen to them. Right? Your strength or superpower might be giving people advice. And you say, well, I don't want to sound like I know it all, so I'm just not going to say anything. And you miss an opportunity to strengthen someone else. I have a very simple viewpoint on life, for the most part, that all of us are here to sharpen and to strengthen one another. That's why we're here. I'm not here because I did all this by myself. I am here because if we were to change that font to 0.5, we still wouldn't have enough space to list all the people that have got me here. So I am a product of different people making sure that their strengths were at the forefront every day. So my challenge to you as you walk these hallways, as you drive on 45, I know it's hard on 45, but do your best. When you drive on 45, right, when you walk in your neighborhood, when you go back home, that you are that person that chooses to make sure that the light of your strengths is always bright. Because then what you will do is that you will not only bring your strengths to the forefront, but you will constantly be looking to find ways to sharpen your strengths over and over and over again. That's the only reason why I choose different things for achievement, is I want to find a new way to do that. Here's the rule. The moment you get comfortable is the moment you've stopped growing. That's just how it works. How will you know when you're comfortable? When you don't try hard anymore, when you don't practice, or when you show up to a presentation and you don't have butterflies. My rule is the day that I show up to speak and I don't have butterflies, and I'm not afraid of disappointing you, the audience, and I show up and I'm not prepared and I'm okay with that, that's the day I'll stop speaking. Because I know I've gotten too comfortable. So none of us should get so comfortable that we stop trying. Very, very important. So that's your number one, self-awareness. Make sure that you are very, very clear. So here's something I wrote down. Self-awareness reminds us of our humanity and forces us to see life not only from our perspective, but through the eyes of others. So we want to make sure that we see it through the eyes of others. Now here's the best part. I don't have to agree with everyone or anyone. How many of you agree with yourself every day? It's really weird, right? You start talking to yourself. Hey self, what do you think about this? And then self responds, I want to do it this way. And then you have to respond, well, I don't think we should do it that way. P.S. There's nothing wrong with talking to yourself. Exactly. There's nothing wrong with even responding to yourself. Just never catch yourself saying, huh? Ever. Then you need to talk to a person like me afterwards. So here's the thing about self-awareness. It's the best cure for hubris. Does anybody know the meaning of the word hubris? Take a guess at the word hubris. So hubris is basically what happens when a person thinks they know everything, and so there's absolutely nothing they need to do to remedy whatever issues in front of them. And it's a human quality. P.S. We've all had hubris at one point or another. Self-awareness is what essentially cures that, or at least puts it at bay, because we are all going to suffer through that one time or another. So number one is self-awareness. So, anybody know who Warren Buffett is? Oh, good, good. One of those really wealthy people in the world. So happy for him. So, one of his partners is a guy named Charlie Munger. And I like it when people just give it to me straight and tell me the truth, because it makes everyone's life easier. But this is what Charlie Munger says. He says, it is dishonorable to be any stupider than you need to be. I will say it again. It is dishonorable to be any stupider than you need to be. Do your very best to keep your stupid low. Good advice? Yeah, you're going to take it anyway. Okay? So number two is self-direction. So we talked about having self-awareness. You need to have self-direction. It kind of answers the question that was asked over here about a straight line towards a success. It's good enough to have some version of self-direction. These are the things I want to accomplish. But most of what we want to accomplish, especially if it's meaningful, it'll take a lot of time. Anyone want to hazard a guess how long it took me to be a naval officer?
10 years.
7 years.
3. 1.
6.
2. 5.
5 years. 5 years. That's how long it took. Now, my version of how long it took is there were multiple pieces running. There are a lot of things that needed to happen in order for me to be one of those people that could even apply to be selected. So the program that I entered through, 500, 1,000 people apply for 20 slots nationwide. Things get really competitive. Now, I'm pretty competitive. Just a little bit. Right, honey? Not with her. A lot. Hey, we've already had this conversation, you and me. Let's get on the same team. I compete because there's an opportunity, right? I like to win. Just so you can see how much I like to win, guess which company I was a part of for 5 weeks with my unit? Whiskey company. Whiskey for winners. Duh. That's what I kept telling Zulu company. I'm like, you guys really are at the bottom of the list. You're the Zulu company, the Z company, the Z company. I made fun of them, but they're all good guys and girls. So please do your very best as much as possible, right, to have a sense of direction where you want to go. You need to know when to turn things up, when to turn things down. It's a healthy trait for all of us to develop. It's going to help us both in our leadership, because every single person in this room has one job: to be a leader. Wherever you are, you're supposed to lead. You hear people talking about things they shouldn't be talking about, right? In the right setting, because you shouldn't really be approaching strangers that way. That's how you get the whole punch in the mouth and the game plan changes, so don't do it that way. The best way to influence people is to have a relationship with them first. That's the easiest way to influence people. You can't influence strangers other than through your behavior, right? The way you're carrying yourself, the way you speak to people, the way you think about yourself, because all those things show up in the nonverbals of your life. One of the things I love about my traveling and working around the world is airports. I love to get to sit down and people watch. It's only creepy if it's not done for research. And I'm always doing it for research. You're welcome. So, it's just awesome to just watch different people's reactions and realities to the things that happen. Right? The way people get upset with the person on the other side of the desk because the weather turned and flights have been canceled. What are we supposed to do with that? You just figure it out, right? You're either staying the night, or they're getting you on a different flight tomorrow or another day. That's just how it's going to work, right? But most people really struggle with that. All of us have to learn in our process of self-direction, again, those limits, but also making sure that we've got the right mentality in our process. Make sense? I'll give you one more and then we'll open it up to questions again, and then I will give you a couple more and then we will close. However, how many of you are okay with making mistakes? Be honest before you raise your hand. All right, you make them every day. How many? Raise your hands again. How many people are okay with making mistakes? Okay, that was awesome. Hold on a second. What was that?
I'm always scared of making mistakes.
You know what's crazy? We all are. And however you define that, whether it's making mistakes or disappointing people, right, we don't want to have that feeling and carry that burden. We don't. But we all have to learn how to carry that burden. I have yet to meet a person who was really good at doing something the first time they tried it. All of us have to keep working at it. All of us. And so that's a thing you and I have to get comfortable with, is making mistakes. The key is to make fewer mistakes than you make good decisions. If you can make more decisions that are leading you towards where you need to be and you're getting to be used as a person in a way that is meaningful compared to the number of mistakes you make, you are doing fantastic. But here's the other side too. If you're not making mistakes, you're not trying. You're just not in the game. I would rather show up, get in the game, and miss a bunch of shots than sit on the bench. I would rather be in the game, take a lot of shots and miss them than not take any shots at all. And here's the thing about life. As much as people hate this, there's a very clear timeline on our lives. I don't know what that is for every person, but there's a very clear timeline. We are not here/alive forever. So I want to make the very best that I can of the time that I do have, whatever that time might be. I want it to be meaningful. And you do that well by being very clear about where you want to go, right? How many people know this simple fact, or this number? What does this number relate to? 1440. 1440. And the audience looks at me weirdly. There's a nerd in front of us. He's from Zambia. What do we do? No guesses? That's the number of minutes you have every day. 1,440. That's how many minutes you have every day. 8,760 hours every single year. Tall, not so tall, from Zambia, from Zimbabwe, from America, from wherever you are. All of us have the same amount of time. Do you know what makes us different one from another? Say, what? Oh, I thought you actually said the answer. You were close too. How we use the time. That's the only thing, how we use our time. So here's a practical tip for you. Become insane with the way you use your time. Start treating your time like your money, and your life will be much easier. Can you imagine if I were to give you $1,440 every single day? Oh, your face was priceless. Her face was priceless, like, I'll take it. But I had one rule for you. You had to spend it all. Every day. That's basically what happens with our time, because you can't carry it over to the next day. Right? We start over at midnight every day. Please use your time wisely. Whether it's studying, whether it's engaging and connecting with the people around you, whether it's being part of a group in a class, whether it's the time that you spend in class, whether it's the time that you spend on technology, ask yourself, is this an investment of my time, or is this just an expense that I'm charging to my time? Because in the business world, there's two things. Something can either be just an expense, or it can be an investment. Here, I don't think, and we got one over here. Why don't we start back this way? Any other questions? Please. Feel free. Oh, yes, sir.
When you have like a big goal, do you think you should, like you don't have to have like small victories? Do you think it's okay to celebrate those victories? Or you should always celebrate to make it to that?
Oh, no. You absolutely have to celebrate the small victories. So his question was, do you celebrate only the big victory or the small ones as you get there? You have to celebrate the small ones. The vast majority of people, the reason that they don't get their big goal, and this is science by the way, one of the reasons they don't get to their big goal is because they didn't celebrate along the way. There wasn't a payoff. They were waiting so long. Every semester you finish, you should celebrate. Now, I didn't say that you should party like 1999, but you should celebrate, seriously. Because that's a huge accomplishment. You just got 3 classes, 4 classes, however many, completed. Done. I don't have to take those classes again. So now I celebrate. And you celebrate just long enough to register for the next classes. You heard that, right? Mm-hmm. You register for the next classes because your overall goal is to walk away from here with your degree, not a bunch of electives, right? So celebrate the small victories as much as possible, right? The training I went to is like one of many trainings I'll be going to. But we celebrated the completion of that because that's the first domino that needs to fall for the others to start falling. So absolutely, that's how I managed to get school done. Every class I finished, I was like, yes, this is done, this is awesome, pat on the back, looking forward, but I need to celebrate this, especially the hard classes, right? When you've gone through this thing where you feel like your brain has been twisted inside out, yeah, you have to do that. You have to absolutely celebrate the small victories. And find a cohort of people that you can do that with. When they have their win, you celebrate with them. When you have your win, they celebrate with you. And you start to create a culture around you of people who celebrate wins. But there's only one way to truly celebrate wins. You actually have to win. And there's only one way to win. You actually have to have goals. Right? You have to have a plan as well for your goals, because a lot of people will have a goal. Hey, I want to be this one day, and that sounds great, but there has to be a plan that's going to help you achieve that. So please never forget to make sure that your goals are written. The best part about goals today, especially since we have these fancy phones that we have, is you can delete goals. You can start all over again. They're not etched in stone, but you can also modify them. You have to learn how to modify goals, because if you don't, you're going to find yourself thinking that you are stuck in this one place and this one direction. And there's a lot of flexibility, and you need to enjoy that flexibility. So thank you for the question. Great one. How about one more? Yes, ma'am.
Along your way, you employ like SMART goals or like another variation strategy?
I think it was a variation. It was mostly a variation. I'm going to give you some homework because I was a professor once, so it feels good to do that right now. I want you to look up the phrase "why smart," W-H-Y, smart. and you will find out how I did that. One of the tools is, a lot of people will do the SMART piece, but there's nothing driving things for the SMART piece to happen. The WHY actually drives things. So that's my homework to you. And when you figure it out, you let me know on social. Just search my name. You'll find me somewhere. Don't be creepy, but you'll find me. You're doing this for research. That's your answer for everything. As you walk by people, you're like, I'm doing this for research. That's what's happening here. Kozhi said it's okay. All right, we have a few more minutes, so let me give you a couple more things and then we will wrap up. You guys have been awesome, by the way. You should give yourselves a good hand. Self-awareness was number one, self-direction number two. The next one is self-esteem. So I'm going to run through this one very, very quickly because I want you to understand this one important thing. Nobody can give you self-esteem. No one. I don't care how good looking they are. Nobody can. Nobody can. You work on your self-esteem every day. There's a difference between self-esteem and hubris, but you have to walk into a situation with courage. You have to walk into a situation knowing that for the most part, you have everything that you need for the situation that you're in right now. And if for some reason you don't have everything that you need, things will be provided one way or another. That's what builds self-esteem. Most people, when they talk about self-esteem, I think they're talking about a phrase called self-concept. So self-concept is basically who we are, right? And I mean genuinely who we are. And then self-esteem is the value that we place on who we really are. No one can take away that value from you. Let me give you a quick example. I bring a bag in here with, I don't know, $100 bills. Easy. I didn't say I was giving it to you. I just said I was bringing it. So I bring a box with $100 bills in it, and you determine that, this box is not valuable. Does it change the value of the contents? No. So why would you change your value because some person, some troll, some other thing said that you weren't valuable? So please, never, ever, ever let somebody else determine your value. I don't care how pretty they are. Okay? I don't care how influential they are. I don't care how badly you want to be like them. No one gets to determine your value. You do. Right? We don't get to determine the value of platinum right now, right? The market does. You are the market for you. You need to set that standard really high. Again, no one gets to determine that but you. Now, your self-concept is shifting and changing every day. You know why? Because of attitudes, beliefs, and values. Those things are going to shift. And again, you get to shift them because it's your life. And as long as you remember that you're going to do the very best that you can to make this world a little better because you were in it, or you're going to make this room a little better because you were in it, or you're going to make 45 better because you were on it, even if there's crazy people around you, I'm okay with that. But nobody should ever, ever make you feel as if you're not valuable because you don't have X, Y, or Z. Never a good thing. So don't let that happen to you, right? Continuous improvement helps you keep your self-esteem where it needs to be. Now, you don't have to arrive wherever it is that you think you need to arrive from a success perspective in order for you to have self-esteem. 5-year-old can have self-esteem. A 100-year-old can have self-esteem. But they get to determine that. So don't let anybody break that from you, okay? All right, number 2, I guess the next one I'm going to give you is self-motivation. It's wonderful when people show up and they motivate you, but the problem with being motivated is people have to keep doing it over and over again. You need to have a place where you can go to find that motivation and inspiration for yourself. And I don't mean going somewhere else like on social. I mean inside. What's the thing inside you that's going to drive you for this situation? So I'll give you mine since we're having honest moments. So I imagine that one day people are going to read the book of my life, somehow, some way. And I'm always wondering, At this juncture in Kozhi's life, as Morgan Freeman is, narrating my story, stay with me. One of my really good friends is from the same town as him, so maybe we can make it happen. But imagine Morgan Freeman, just like he did with the Penguin story, the March of the Penguins. In this moment, at this moment, Kozhi decided, see where I'm going with it? Kozhi had a choice. He reached a fork in the road, and he could go left, or port, he could go left, and just not really succeed. Or he could take whatever he needed to take to go right and actually succeed. The motivation for me is always at this juncture in my moment, I don't want the reader to feel as if I quit. That motivates me. So find the thing that motivates you, all right? Positive relationships. Notice I said positive. My wife and I have a very simple rule. Negative doesn't live around us. I don't care whether you're a family member or not. Sorry, there's no room for negative in our world. I have enough of it without you being family and being here. Sorry. Some of you have to go home and say some of those things. Good luck. Especially if you're living with them. Yep. All of us have to find positive relationships. The kinds of relationships that will tell you the truth about you. Now, again, that's neutral. I need people in my life to tell me the truth about me when I'm doing well, but also when I'm not doing so well, and when I'm being mediocre. Those are the positive and honest relationships we all need. Here's two more. Number one, positive thinking. You need people around you who are constantly thinking positively about the world. We have enough people telling us what's broken, do we not? Turn on the news. And then call certain people, and they'll tell you everything that's broken without telling you how to fix it. But they will tell you how broken it is. They'll tell you what you are lacking, but won't give you any direction or resources to change that. That should tell you right there, these are not the right people to be listening to. And here's my final thought. Make sure you make discipline the central part of your life. Now, some people feel as if discipline is this thing that steals from you, that it takes away, because in most people's minds, discipline means I don't get to do what I want. Let me tell you about successful people. Now I have to go back here and look at something. Let me tell you about successful people. Successful people have learned something really important, that it's not about them. And I mean genuinely successful people. They've discovered that it's not about them. The things that they pursue, they're not driven by them doing what they want to do. They're driven by the things that need to be done. Are you going to get a chance in the process of all of this to do some of the things you want to do? Heck yeah, because why are you working hard then? You have to be able to do that. I want you to enjoy the fruits of your labor as much as possible. But please don't conflate that to you always get what you want. I have the benefit and the joy of working with some of the most amazing people in the world. And the one filter that I always check first, right, is that they have self-awareness. And if they have enough self-awareness to realize that they don't always get what they want and it's okay, then there's a good chance I'll probably work with them, whether it's an individual or an organization. But they have to have discipline. So let me read you this one thought, and then I will get out of your hair. Hello? So, no discipline. Listen to this. No discipline seems pleasant at the time, but painful. Later on, however, it produces a harvest for those people who've been trained by it. I see this quote every single day, because that's what it takes in order for us to be successful, spiritually, emotionally, physically, financially, relationally, and I could go on and on. One last question, and then I will pass you off to your next event. Yes, ma'am.
My question is that, what do you do when the best that was enough before is not enough anymore? Regarding to where you want to become, where you want to be in life, and regarding the heights you want to go to and stuff.
That's an awesome question. I wish I could treat it with the depth that it deserves, so hopefully we can do this offline. But I'll try to give you as a succinct response as possible. What do you do when you feel as if your best that was good yesterday is not good enough today? I would start by figuring out what resources are necessary to make my best better. That's the number one thing. What resources do I need to get my best to be better? And also ask those deepening questions of why does my best seem like it's not good enough today compared to yesterday? What filter am I using to make that determination and that judgment? Because I want to always make sure that I know my why before I take that next step. Because if for some reason my best was good yesterday, but it's not as good today, but it's for the same circumstances, something may be off. And so we all need to develop that questioning heart and that questioning spirit of why am I making my moves the way I am? Because sometimes we can be mindless in our pursuits. It's very easy to do that, whether it's a pursuit to make more money, to get more education, and so on. There has to be a purpose and things have to tie in together. And so always have that questioning heart for yourself, and that will make things a little bit easier for you, because then you'll know how much you need to turn up your best and for what situation, and whether it's worthy for you to turn your best into something else for that particular situation. But I'll be happy to have this conversation even further with you offline.
Thank you.
My pleasure. Folks, you have been amazing. Seriously. Best way for me to spend a Saturday. Yes, other than being with my wife. For the record, just to make sure I clear that up. Thank you. P.S. He's my attorney. So he is keeping me honest, and I appreciate that. But again, thank you all for allowing me to come here and spend part of this day with you. I know that you're going to continue to learn. Christina is extremely special to me, and so I am biased towards her. So please be nice to her as much as you can. But she is absolutely wonderful, and thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.